he ain't scared. He knows he's gifted. He knows he's skilled, and he brings a lot to the table. I just have questions as to what the San Antonio Spurs are going to put around him to warrant consideration.
The Spurs can't treat this like a long-term rebuild. They've got to move quickly in putting a real team around him.
In a world gripped by Victor Wembanyama fever, the San Antonio Spurs find themselves at a pivotal juncture. With the NBA draft approaching, the burning question on everyone's mind is, who should the Spurs select to bolster their lineup and complement Wembanyama's towering presence on the court? Victor Wembanyama mania is sweeping the world, and it's easy to see why. I mean, who wouldn't get excited about a 7'4" do-it-all center who might end up needing an extra room just for his Defensive Player of the Year trophy? Seriously, this guy is on a path that could make the NBA reconsider the size of its trophy cases. Add in a few MVP awards, and we're talking about a legend in the making. But hey, while individual awards are great for the mantle, they don't have the same shine without a few championship rings to go with them. After all, nobody plays basketball just to win a bunch of Best Defensive Player awards. It's all about the championships, baby. And of course, Wembanyama can block, dunk, and shoot his way to glory, but he's not Superman. Well, okay, maybe he is, but even Superman needs a Justice League. This is where the San Antonio Spurs front office comes in. They're the ones who need to assemble the right squad to complement Wemby and keep him from having to do it all alone. Think of it as finding the perfect sidekicks to their superhero. Now, here's where things get interesting. As it stands, the Spurs are projected to snag the 3rd overall pick in this year's draft. Meanwhile, the Toronto Raptors are holding on to the 6th pick like it was the last slice of pizza at a party. The twist? If that pick falls outside the top 6, it goes to the Spurs. So San Antonio could be gearing up for a double whammy in the draft department. When it comes to teaming up with Victor Wembanyama, one thing you absolutely can't ignore is shooting. Our big man is going to need all the room he can get as he grows into his career, which means if you're thinking about drafting some shaky shooters with potential, you might want to think again. Betting on upside in this case is about as helpful as a chocolate teapot. Now, another nice to have, but not a must have, is great positional size. You don't want Wembanyama having to cover for too many players. Imagine him trying to guard the perimeter because his teammates are too short to block shots. It's not a good look. You need players who can handle their own business, swatting away attempts so Wembanyama can focus on being the defensive beast we all know he can be, without spreading himself thinner than a single-ply tissue. This leads us to 2 specific players who fit the bill. Cody Williams from Colorado. Yes, he's the younger brother of Oklahoma City Thunder star Jalen Williams. And, of course, Wembanyama's fellow Frenchman, Zachary Risacher. Both of these guys can shoot and have the size to challenge shots, making them prime candidates to help our guy Victor shine without having to play the superhero role on every defensive possession. Cody Williams stands at 6'8" and has been knocking down 41% of his outside shots. Sure, it's on low volume, but hey, it's a good sign. Plus, he's got the athleticism to play on the wing, and his height, definitely an advantage. On defense, he's been a champ at navigating screens this year, showing a knack for knowing when to switch and when to stick with his man. Offensively, Williams isn't just a one-trick pony. No, he's got some on-ball playmaking skills that hint at potential as a self-creator. Even if that's not the main feature of his game right now, there's a clear pathway for him to develop in that area, making him a versatile and promising option to pair with Wembanyama. So, if you're looking for someone who can shoot, defend, and maybe even create some offense, Williams could be your guy. His shooting will give Wembanyama the space he needs, and his defense will keep Victor from having to cover for everyone else. It's a win-win. Now, let's talk about the fellow Frenchman, Zachary Risacher. The 18-year-old finesse maestro. Compared to Williams, Zachary leans more towards finesse than aggressiveness, but he more than makes up for it with a smoother and more effective outside shot, hitting a cool 42.8%. He's fluid and determined in his movements, making him a versatile defender capable of covering multiple positions thanks to his size and touch. Next to Wembanyama, Zachary could slot in as either a wing or a 4, depending on the matchup. This guy knows how to use his height to his advantage. At 6'9", though he looks even taller and might surprise everyone at draft measurements, he often rises up over smaller defenders and calmly sinks his jumpers, barely noticing the contest. So when you pair Zachary with Wembanyama, you're looking at a duo that can stretch the floor, switch defensively across multiple positions, and keep the opposition guessing. His shooting and versatility would give Wembanyama the space he needs to operate and dominate, while also adding a layer of defensive flexibility. Hey, plus, it's always nice to have another Frenchman on the squad to keep things culturally cohesive. In the NBA, Risacher won't always be able to rise up over smaller opponents. There are plenty of players with proper size at every position who won't make it that easy, so he will need to figure out how to squeeze out additional offense. This means diversifying his scoring arsenal and finding ways to be effective even when he's not towering over his defender like a giraffe among meerkats. Whether the Spurs end up with Williams or Risacher, they'll score a significant long-term upgrade at the wing. Both players have skill sets that mesh well with Victor Wembanyama, which is really the main goal here. For what it's worth, with the Spurs picking 4th in this scenario, Williams is more likely to still be on the board. Now, as we move on to the 7th selection, things get considerably murkier. By then, Nikola Topic is likely off the board. Rob Dillingham and Reed Shepherd could also be gone. This puts the Spurs in a bit of a pickle. They're in dire need of a young playmaker, and both Dillingham and Topic would fit the best player available description, as well as fill a need. At number 7, there's no obviously point guard candidate to justify that draft slot, so the Spurs might consider trading down. In summary, while the Spurs would be thrilled to grab either Williams or Risacher to pair with Wembanyama, the 7th pick could be a trickier situation. A trade down scenario might be the best move to address their playmaking needs without reaching for a player who doesn't fit the draft slot. Isaiah Collier, currently projected as a late lottery to mid-first round pick, could be the answer to the Spurs' playmaking needs while also being the best player available at that draft slot. Now, let's think about the Miami Heat sitting at number 13. Would they be willing to trade up and hand over their selection and some future draft capital for a shot at landing Ron Holland? It's not out of the question. The Heat are known for making bold moves to get the players they want, and Holland's talent could definitely entice them. If this trade happens, the Spurs taking Collier at number 13 would be a steal. Collier might not be a natural long-range shooter, but he has some upside. His current 33.8% from outside isn't setting the world on fire, but imagine him spending a few years in San Antonio's training facilities. With some minor adjustments and the right coaching, he could realistically shape into a 40% shooter. So the scenario looks like this. The Spurs nab Williams at number 4 to pair with Wembanyama, then swing a trade with the Heat to move down and pick up Collier at number 13. Suddenly, they filled their wing need and grabbed a young playmaker with a high ceiling. It's a win-win, and Collier's shooting, well, let's just say the Spurs coaching staff will be on that like a Texan on barbecue. Before you know it, Collier could be raining threes and making the Alamo City proud. Isaiah Collier may not be sinking threes like a Steph Curry would, but boy, can he drive to the hoop. Averaging 5.8 free throw attempts at USC, the guy practically lives in the paint. And at 6'4", he's got some size for a point guard. Collier's strength is a force to be reckoned with. He bulldozes through defenders, absorbs contact like a sponge, and still manages to find open teammates when the defense collapses on him. With his scoring prowess, 16.3 points per game this season, he'll bring a whole new dynamic to the Spurs offense. And imagine the possibilities when he and Wembanyama team up. Collier's downhill drives will draw defenders like moths to a flame, leaving Wembanyama open to wreak havoc in the paint. Now, if Collier's stock starts to skyrocket before draft day, the Spurs could just sit tight at number 7 and see if he falls into their laps. But if they manage to snag both Cody Williams and Isaiah Collier, they'll be grinning like Cheshire cats. These 2 additions would be a major coup, rounding out the long-term roster and giving Wembanyama some serious firepower to work with. It's a win-win-win situation for the Spurs, their fans, and anyone who loves exciting basketball. As fans eagerly await the unveiling of the Spurs draft strategy, one thing is certain. The decisions made in the coming days will shape the future of the franchise for years to come. With excitement and anticipation in the air, the journey to rebuild the Spurs into the championship contenders. With excitement and anticipation in the air, the journey to rebuild the Spurs into championship contenders is well underway. Please like and subscribe for more content coming your way. Thank you.